Today on Locked On Canadiens, we take a look at the women's bracket at the Olympics, tell you why Canada might have an injury scare on their hands, and what's going to happen in the eventual Canada-US matchup. And then we get into the Canadiens and where the Habs are playing on their respective Olympic teams.
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into another episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcast, doing that supports us here on the show, and ensure you don't miss an episode, and for making us here at Locked On, the number one sports podcast network. We do really love saying that, so thank you once again for tuning in. My name is Ian Boisvert, also known as @MaybeIt'sIan, and I'm joined, as I always am, by Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick. Laura, it is Women's Hockey Day here at Locked On Canadiens. We can't really call it a preview because the tournament is underway. They started a little bit earlier than the men's bracket, but we're going to dive into the women's bracket in, there are a lot of fun stories, a lot of fun players. I think what we're all pointing to, though, is a Canada-US match of some kind before this is all, they're going to play the prelims, but before all is said and done, those two juggernauts are going to go at it for the gold medal. How are you feeling on the eve of what is their first matchup in the prelims?
I'm going to go right ahead and say it. I'm nervous. Before we started recording, we got the news that, Ian was watching. I got the news that Marie-Philip Poulin did not play in the second and third periods after being injured. And I know she was seen later not wearing a skating boot or anything a walking boot or anything like that. But it's still very concerning because she's the kind of player who, even if she didn't play a shift, she would be on the bench. So right now we're a little bit nervous. There was a little bit of a scare with Erin Ambrose as well, but she returned to the game. So yeah, it's a little bit less scary.
Yeah, look, so I want to save our Canada-US sort of feelings for the second segment. First segment, I want to tackle the women's bracket as a whole, and we'll finish the show telling you guys where the Canadiens are playing or practicing on their respective men's teams, and we'll dive into what we think is the decision-making behind those moves. All right, we're taking a look first, though, at the women's bracket. Canada's 2 games in. They've won both of them, not to the surprise of many.
They weren't even close, not close at all.
I go back and forth with this with international women's hockey, right? It's there's a lot of really great players. The sport has never had as many strong players as it does now. Is it a draw? Is it a draw for the sport that it's really a two-headed monster with US and Canada? I know, there's talent on all those other teams, but they don't have much in the way of silver or gold medal hopes elsewhere.
Right.
How, as someone, you followed women's hockey for longer than I have, what do you watch the other games for? What is it that draws you to those?
So I look at the tournament usually as a 2-tier tournament, and I think we're going to have to for a while, because when we have conversations about fairness and things like that, what we neglect to always mention is the fact that, the women have not had opportunities to play. They've not had professional leagues to play in a lot of the time, right? It's only in the last couple of, I'm going to say decades, but really the last few years that women have had an opportunity to play at a high level. And so it does make sense, where there's so many college programs and now a league in North America. It does make sense that the North American players have more opportunities. There's more ice rinks. There's more money funneled into it. So it does make sense. But we can't just eliminate women's hockey because of the lack of parity. And there's always conversations that happen because there are compelling stories. So the way that I try to enjoy it is I try to look at it as a 2-tier tournament, like what we were talking about yesterday with Team Canada versus Switzerland, right? An incredible goaltending performance. You have to look at that performance and you have to enjoy it, right? Even if you know that at the end of the day, it's going to be Canada, Sweden, and then probably Finland in the top 3. you still have to kind of look at the Sweden versus Finland matchup, right? Like look at the Swiss goaltender, look at Czechia putting up a fight, because those programs will only catch up if we continue to watch and support it. So you do find compelling matchups or compelling storylines or compelling players. Like that's how I try to enjoy it, because it's always been a foregone conclusion, or it usually is a foregone conclusion, that Canada and the US are going to meet in the final, and one of them is going to win gold, and the other team, like everybody's going to be depressed about it for 4 years until the next tournament comes around. So you do kind of have to support everybody. Like I remember watching Team Japan the first time. I thought it was incredible, because you were learning about players that you would never have the opportunity to see otherwise, and you were learning about storylines. And then, one of them came over to play, and I cannot remember which league it was, but it was the US league that was not the CWHL. It was, I can't remember. NWHL?
Yeah.
That was the one, right? So like these players are getting noticed and getting opportunities because of this. And the more interest we show, the more money that they'll get from their own programs, and the more rinks they'll have in their countries. And I think that's also a really big thing. We also have to support the men's hockey, and the more programs there are, the more rinks there are, just the easier it is. We talk so much here in North America about how expensive it is to get into hockey. Yeah. That's true. But like in a lot of countries, there's literally not enough ice to play on, right? So that's a thing. So anyways, the way that I try to observe it is I look at it as a two-tier tournament. I try not to focus on the fact that we're going to see Canada and the US in the final. I try to focus on all the other matchups and how well they play against each other. And a lot of them are much more evenly matched. And a lot of them also do have that same fire. We're used to US Canada, but again, Team Finland versus Sweden or whatever. Like there's a lot of fire there as well. And I have to say, I've been impressed with Czechia so far.
Yeah, I mean, we were recording this the day that Czechia and Canada just played one another, and Czechia was quite physical in that game. They were taking some runs at some players. One that took Marie-Philip Poulin out of that game. I do want to talk about that, but let's save that for our second segment when talking about the Canada-USA rivalry. The first game that Canada played in this tournament was against Switzerland, and a game that most people thought can Switzerland keep it close? And for one, Saskia Maurer, they sure did. Like that was a 4-0 game, but it could have easily been 15-16-0. Yeah. She made over 50 saves in that game. I mean, just I'm watching this wearing my Marie-Philip Poulin jersey, rooting for Canada, but I can't help but find myself rooting for Saskia Maurer and being like, this is one of the premier goaltending talents in this sport that we might not have been able to see had not been for this tournament. She was fantastic. And then her counterpart in Andrea Brandley, I believe is the pronunciation of that name, I could be getting it wrong, did very similar against the US the day after. Yes. So I completely agree with you that it is still like, it's Canada US. They're going to play meaningful games for medals every time this tournament comes around. But there are players, man. There's players elsewhere. I think Switzerland has a lot of NCAA players at the moment who those are going to become PWHL players at some point in the near future, right? Like maybe not all of them, but a good number of them will become professional hockey players. Which
I agree,
isn't something. You look at the Swiss roster for the men. There's a good sprinkling of NHL talent on there, but I think that the Swiss women might have a more direct pipeline in that respect.
Absolutely, and that's why I say we have to support them, and we have to watch it because we see them. We go to the Victoire games and stuff. It's not all just Canadian and US players. We get really excited about this, and so for me, I think there will be a day when the US and Canada are going to have to worry about more than each other. They're going to be upset. They could be upset in this tournament.
Yeah.
Sounds far-fetched, but they could.
Is there a team in this bracket, in this tournament, who can challenge them?
I would honestly say no, not yet. But I think we're getting close. I think we are.
Yeah. If you made me pick one, I'm gonna say the Swedes.
Yeah.
They've got they're 3-0, the 14 goals for, 2 against. So they're right up there, right, with those guys. I'm kind of curious. I mean, they won't play US and Canada, given their bracket where they're placed in the prelims. They might play each other in the playoff in the medal rounds. But I think that might be the team that gives those two powerhouses a run for their money. Like that's going to matter when it comes to seeding, which is why this upcoming, as you're listening to this, it's today, Canada and US game in the prelims. That's why that game is so important for seeding, because somebody who doesn't win that might have to play Sweden much earlier than they would have wanted to.
Exactly.
And that could be a very uncomfortable, semifinal or, something like that.
Absolutely. I'm in full agreement with you. I think we are also seeing that too. Like if you're a PWHL fan, you're seeing a lot more Swedes across the rosters, right? So it is something that, is directly translating. And that's why I say, like, as soon as next Olympics, like they might have legitimate worry. And it could, like, the Swedes could upset somebody, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll leave that there. Speaking of legitimate worry, it's Canada and US today. And we'll talk about that game in particular with all the injuries that Canada might be dealing with, but also the prospects of this being a gold medal match. Should Canadian fans be worried? And we'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. If you've ever hired someone who looked good on paper but wasn't the right fit, you know how important that is. When you want candidates who truly match what you're looking for, trust Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Hiring Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your post seen on other sites. Indeed Sponsored Jobs put your post at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. If I needed to hire someone for this show, I really hope I wouldn't have to do that, but if I had to, I'd go straight to Indeed and be very specific about what I need. Real experience, not just a resume buzzword. Instead of struggling to get your job post seen, Indeed Sponsored Jobs helps your listing stand out and reach quality candidates faster. Sponsored Jobs boost your posts to the people who are the best match for your role. And that makes a real difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed are 90% more likely to report a hire than a non-sponsored job. Spend more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with less stress, less time, and more results using Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Listeners of this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to help give your job the premium placement it deserves at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support the show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Do it the right way with Indeed. All right, welcome back. Thank you for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You'll get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Canadiens, compatible with all of your major podcast apps. You'll also get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. I'm hanging out there. Laura's hanging out there. Come hang out with us. Go to LockedOnCanadiens.com, LockedOnCanadiens.supercast.com, or check the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, Laura, you alluded to it. We've talked about it. Marie-Philip Poulin played one period in this game. She took a pretty punishing check that was penalized as an illegal check in the game against the Czechs. She comes back to the bench late in the first period. She goes off with her team. She does not come back. A reporter there for, I believe, Radio Canada, Christine Rogers, noted that she saw Marie-Philip Poulin walking around without equipment on. She seemed to be walking just fine. There was no walking boot. There were no crutches. So she was walking without medical assistance, so to speak. That makes me feel a little bit better. But considering that was this reporter's first thought, it kind of leads you to believe the same, not leads you to believe, but it leads you to the same kind of worry that we might have as Canadian fans going into this. Laura, what are the Canadiens without Marie-Philip Poulin?
They're still a very strong team. What they are missing is the captain clutch aspect of it. I think Marie-Philip Poulin, like Juraj Slafkovsky and a lot of other players, have this ability to instinctually turn it on more in big moments. So right now, I just checked. There's no news. It just says that she's injured. There's no news as to how many games she's going to be out. Her status is in doubt, not for the rest of the tournament, at least for the next game, which is Canada-USA. I think, obviously, you just talked about it. This matchup is important for seeding purposes. You want to avoid a tougher route to the medal round. I think that Team Canada if it doesn't win this game, it's not the end of the world. We've seen time and time again in other tournaments where they lose the preliminary round game and they still make it to the medal round against each other. And then it's kind of a little bit more of a coin flip. So I have decided to be zen about this and only be concerned if she can't make it in the medal round, because Team Canada is still an incredibly strong team without her. And like, look at all the scoring they've got without her. Right?
Yeah, it's true.
Look at all the scoring they've had without her. Now, that's not the same as Team USA with like undeniably an incredible amount of talent. And I could argue that it might even be better than Team Canada. I'm not, like they're generally on par with each other, but I think Team Canada really did themselves a disservice by only going with PWHL, whereas like the rest of I guess some of the other teams didn't have a choice, but the rest of them like went through, not just PWHL players, but NCAA players and things like that. So I really wonder also with Team Canada's age a little bit. I'm a little bit concerned about that. But at the end of the day, like this matchup is huge and it's going to be emotional and we're going to get really, really intense about it. But I'm not going to worry about Marie-Philip Poulin unless she can't come back in a later round.
Yeah, I'm in the same place. Like we can't get overworked about it. Obviously, it's huge because she's a huge part of Canadian folklore. Like it cannot be overstated, her importance to this roster, to this team's hopes at medaling,
and to
like,
history,
and to Canadian history. Like, I mean, she is the most accomplished hockey player in Canadian history, in Olympic history. So, it cannot be overstated how important that is. With that said, you pointed it out. Canada has talent. They have talent that could help them squeak one out against the United States. I think the US comes into this tournament the favorite to win the gold. I think you just look at the last few rivalry series that they've played against each other. US has walked out of those feeling pretty good about themselves. Those are fun. I love that anytime we can get Canada US in anything hockey related, I want to see it. So with all of that said, like there are players on Team Canada that I would look at as this is a player who needs to take that edge find the next edge to their game in order to fill in the absence of Marie-Philip playing, or even if MPP is playing, to just provide more offense for them. One of them for me, I absolutely love watching Sarah Fillier play hockey, Laura. Like I want the puck on her stick 90% of the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's so quick. She makes decisions at such a high speed. Just a really great brain for the game. Like I've enjoyed watching her play more than most of the other players on that team, and that's not a slight to them. It's just every time she has the puck, she's trying to do something special with it. Yeah. It's so like when she broke into the scene, was it the Beijing games or was it the Pyeongchang games?
I can't remember,
but she was like brand new. That was her first run, right? And even then she was still incredible, but there's so much growth in her game between then and now where you can see the way that she's thinking the game at such a high speed. That's going to be a big difference. There's the obvious Marie-Philip Poulin and the Kendall Coyne Schofields of the US, those guys making a difference, Hillary Knight, all those guys. For me, like Sarah Fillier is in that same conversation.
Yes.
And I'm really hoping that she puts on a show in that game against the States.
Absolutely. I also think that like in a game against the US, the supporting players are more like need to be more two-way. Like I feel like when we're talking about when they're playing against Switzerland or Czechia or any of the other teams, right? You need the secondary scoring, and sometimes the secondary scoring carries the game, and some of your top lines or stars can rest a little bit or whatever. But we really need, and when I say we, I mean anybody who's cheering for Team Canada needs Team Canada's support players to be more two-way against the US, because there's going to be a lot of defense necessary. And I have a lot of trust in Team Canada's goaltending on the women's side, unlike the men's side. But I do think that this game, everybody has to pitch in, and it's like a little bit less about scoring and it's more about containing the US, because the US is the favorite. It is a juggernaut. And I hate to say this, but I really do think that they brought the better team.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and I think that matters to a certain extent, right? At the end of the day, though, these are two rosters that know each other really well. and they hate each other a lot. They respect each other a lot. Let's be realistic. Like these are players who, once this is over, they will go back to their PWHL teams and they will pass the puck to these players
Or marry them.
Or marry them. Sometimes marry them. Who can be sure? That's a good point. I sometimes forget. We cover predominantly the National Hockey League, and I forget that that's a thing that happens in women's hockey. We should see more of it. I think we should see more and more of that. If you had a prediction, let's stick with the prelim round. Let's assume Marie-Philip Poulin is healthy. This game on Wednesday. Can Canada win that game?
They can.
Will they?
No.
You think the U.S. beats them?
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. Because I think in the last few tournaments, what's been really obvious is that a lot of the times the Canadiens put more of their energy into the gold medal game. That anticipation. We talk about it sometimes with the Canadiens, right? When they're on a back-to-back and they're playing an inferior team, sometimes they lose against them because they're focused on the better team that's coming the next day. Yeah. I think that's what they do. Like that instinctively, organically feels like that's what they're going to do. I might be wrong, but I feel like, maybe USA wins this one and that's not the end of the world.
Yeah. I think anything's possible. I'm really excited about this game. I'll have to sneak glances of it at my desk, but very excited to see how this one plays out. All right, we'll leave that there.
I will have to catch it afterwards.
Yeah, we'll leave that there. When we come back, we'll head over to the men's bracket. The Montreal Canadiens at the Olympics on their respective teams have been placed onto lines. We'll talk about 3 of them and give you our reasoning for why they're on there and whether or not we're surprised by their placement. We'll get into that in just a minute here on Locked On Canadiens. Cold days, packed schedules, and big goals. That's winter. And when there's not a lot of time to cook, eating well can feel like another thing on the to-do list. That's where Factor comes in. Factor makes healthy eating easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs, so you can eat well without the planning, the prepping, or the cooking. Factor meals are always fresh and never frozen. They're ready in about 2 minutes out of the microwave. The ingredients stand out: lean proteins, colorful veggies, whole foods, healthy fats, no refined sugars, no artificial sweeteners, no refined seed oils. I did Factor for a long time. I really enjoyed it. It was during a time where I didn't have a lot of time to cook after work. It was really nice to sit down with my wife and we'd pick out the meals from a week of a list of 100 rotating meals. It never got boring. It was perfect for busy weeks when we wanted to still have meals that, felt like we were eating well without any of the stress involved in it. So head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 off and use code LockedOnNHL50 off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only. Varies by plan. 1 free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. All right, Laura, it's time for us to say we were big, dumb, and wrong about where Nick Suzuki was going to play. They don't see him as a center on this roster at all, which I find interesting. He skated on the second line at practice. In the middle, Nathan MacKinnon, the hockey cyborg, who said he's not in Italy to enjoy any part of being in Italy. He's there to win a gold and go home, which I think it's a good thing he actually ended up on an Olympic team, because if he didn't during this break, he would probably just lock himself in his garage until the Avalanche started to play again. So that's one of the guys Nick Suzuki's playing with. And the other one is Brad Marchand.
Who didn't he almost kill him a couple of weeks ago?
What are we doing? I say this not because I think it's a bad line. I actually think it's a pretty fun line. I'm really excited to see this play out. But that's diabolical, man.
He knows what he's doing.
Putting Brad Marchand on the same line as the Canadiens captain is evil. Like, it's just an evil move by an evil man.
The Canadiens captain that he almost took out like a month ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever.
I bet if you're Nick Suzuki, are you like, hey, Mike didn't like when you elbowed him in the brain earlier? Like, can you just send him a text and say sorry or something? Like, I'm really curious what's happening there. Look, let's get away from this. Nick Suzuki's a winger on this Olympic team, which is just kind of, it speaks to the depth that these guys have. I think they rolled out Crosby as their third line center, which is just one of the funniest things you can do as an Olymp. I feel like that's a show of force, right?
It's so good.
Sidney Crosby is the third best center on our roster. I don't believe that's true, by the way. But
Okay, wait. Okay, hold on. Sidney Crosby today, is he better than Nate MacKinnon today?
No, but
is he better than Connor McDavid today?
No.
Then objectively, he is the third best center on this team.
I guess. Thank you for talking some sense into me. That's probably right. What I find interesting about it is that wasn't it a line where it was Marchand, MacKinnon, and Crosby?
Yeah.
So does Cooper think that Suzuki can play Crosby-esque, and that's why he's putting him in that spot? I kind of get the feeling that he thinks he can fill that role.
I think I think he's using Suzuki's instincts, because Suzuki has incredible hockey instincts, right? Like, and you have to play with a cyborg like Nate MacKinnon. But also, like, there is something about Brad Marchand's game that complements Nick Suzuki.
Sure. Right? Yeah, I think so too. I'm actually kind of curious to see what Suzuki takes away from playing on this line. Like, he's going to play with a guy who every hockey player is driven, right? Every hockey player is, all the best hockey players in the world are, motivated to win.
Yeah.
Not like that guy. Not like Nathan No Carbs MacKinnon, man. Like,
it wasn't just the carbs. He looks at you funny if you eat carbs.
Yeah. He's out of his mind. I'm wondering what Suzuki takes away from him. And I'm low-key kind of excited to see him play with Brad, just in the sense that I want Nick to take away from that the little stuff you can get away with after the whistle.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, oh, the IIHF officiating for the Olympics is going to... No, it's not. Look at who they're sending. It's a lot of NHL refs.
Yeah.
It's going to be NHL hockey at the Olympics. I don't know how else to tell people this. The NHL was actually talking with the IHF and the referees that they had there to try to make them call the games more like NHL games. So I don't think we should expect anything other than the NHL quality of officiating, which is to say bad.
Yeah.
So I kind of want him to learn from Brad.
Yeah.
Like, what are the stuff I'm allowed to get away with? Teach me your ways. Be Rat Yoda. Like, that's what I want him to be. And I hope that's what he takes away from that.
Yeah, and the other thing too is that, like, we don't know if they'll move him around, right? Like, this is where he's playing right now, but his assignment's going to change on the penalty kill. I don't even know if there's going to be room for him on any power play wave, really.
He's not on a power play unit, so more time for Nick Suzuki on the penalty kill. I think honestly, I don't hate that idea.
No, not at all. He's very good.
Yeah. All right, let's leave Canada and Suzuki there. Let's move over to Slovakia and Finland, who are the first matchup of the tournament. Let's start with Finland because it should be a quick one.
Yeah.
Oliver Kapanen is skating as the 13th forward, which sounds like he's not going to play. But remember, I believe they're allowed to dress 20 skaters. So they typically go 7 defensemen, 13 forwards.
Yeah.
So he'll probably be out there, as a secondary center to take a face off in case a guy gets tossed.
Maybe on the penalty kill if there's too many penalty kills in a row.
Yeah. He'll still, and I think, look, him just going, I think is incredible.
I was honestly surprised. I was surprised that he got picked because he's a rookie. Like, he's incredible, but he's still a rookie. And I thought, and I know Finland doesn't do this, like, haven't paid your dues or whatever. Like, it's not like that. But I thought that there were other options that they might take. So for me, I think, like, if he just goes with them and he gets that experience of playing with the best and, playing against the best, for me, like, it's kind of like how we talk about the Habs having playoff school, right? For him, it's Olympic school, because I think next tournament, he's not going to be the 13th forward.
Yeah. I think you would be hard pressed to find a player who has played for more unique teams over the last
2 years,
2 years than Oliver Kapanen.
Yeah.
Right. He played for his pro team overseas. He came to Montreal. He played in Montreal. He played for Laval. He went back to the other team. He's played for all of these teams, and now he's going to the Olympics. Like, the dude just keeps playing in different situations. We talk about, David Reinbacher, and he's not been able to develop much because he hasn't played as much. He's always been hurt. The inverse is true for Oliver Kapanen, who has played every game he's been eligible for and then some. It's been unbelievable to just every time you turn around, he's playing hockey for someone else. It's been really good to see for the Canadiens. his opponent in that first game will be Slovakia. Juraj Slafkovsky lines up on the first line with Adam Ruzicka, I believe Ruska is how you pronounce that name, and one Thomas Tatar. A very funny sort of Canadiens look at this.
Yes.
Look, I mean, that's going to be a team that's challenged, I think, to score at the same rate that a lot of the higher ups can do in this tournament. What are you expecting out of Juraj Slafkovsky in that role on that top line?
He's going to play a lot of minutes.
Yep.
He's going to take over the game sometimes. I think he's going to have a lot of fun playing with Tatar. I think it's going to be really entertaining. So. Absolutely. I just think that at the end of the day, like you can't just have one guy or one line or one duo or whatever. So I think like Slovakia is going to struggle a little bit more on the depth front.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. They're going to have to take advantage of their situations, especially their power plays, which Juraj Slafkovsky will be on the top unit. There was a very funny picture of him sort of coaching up players on the power play for Slovakia. And someone on Reddit, they basically captioned it with him saying, "No, you go here, you play as Hudson, and you go over there, and you're Demidov, and I'll go right here." Like I think that's very funny. I think what I'm looking at this from a Canadiens perspective is I want, first of all of these guys to stay healthy. I want these guys to play in meaningful games and have big moments, but I want them to take stuff back with them and come back to the Canadiens in the stretch run where they're going into the last 25 games of the season with home ice advantage in the playoffs if things hold out the way they are. Like I want them to take those things back with them and teach the other young guys who are part of this roster how they won, how they managed to deal with certain things at the Olympics, what they learned from some of the other veterans who were there. You know, like Nick Suzuki playing with Nathan MacKinnon is music to my ears. Just regardless of how that plays out, stick those two together and just let them hang out for a little bit. And also go talk to Connor McDavid and tamper your butt off, Nick.
Yeah.
Like make sure that maybe I could see myself in a Canadiens uniform.
For me, it's really the 2.5 weeks, I guess, however long it's been, since they started traveling, that he spends with Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, no, same. That's another guy that you want to learn from. I think the Canadiens, it's their biggest gain from all of this.
Yeah,
is all of these guys playing and learning from people around them. The reason we didn't talk about Alexander Texier, he's the best player on Team France. He's going to play on the top line. Team France is not going to do all that much. It still is a great honor for him to represent his country, but it's a different conversation than the three core players that the Canadiens have who are part of the Olympic Games. All right, we'll leave that there. Man, the Olympics are wonderful. I really do enjoy this time. It's so great that the NHL is back, that we get a double dose of hockey. We get to watch the incredible women's tournament. And then also, yes, the guys that we watch on a daily basis are also playing. Like it seems so funny that in this episode, it was almost an afterthought, but that's the way it goes during the Olympics. All right, we'll leave that there. Let's head to our trivia and then head out of here. As a reminder, for February, all of our questions are Black History Month themed. So yesterday's question, the 1989-90 Edmonton Oilers won the Stanley Cup with two Black goalies playing for their team. Who are they? Do you have the answer to this one, Laura?
Is it Grant Fuhr and Eldon Reddick?
It was, yes, Grant Fuhr and Eldon Pokey Reddick. He's listed everywhere as Pokey Reddick, which I find is just really, that's the name I prefer to go with. Valkyrie Enes, Hiroshi, and I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to try my best. Kanayoshi, Joe Segreto, and Ted Clare gave us the answer for that one. Today's question, Layla Edwards is the first Black woman to play for the Americans in Olympic ice hockey. Who broke the ice for the Canadian men and women in those respective tournaments? So who were the first Black men? Who was the first Black man? And who is the first Black woman to play ice hockey for Team Canada at the Winter Olympics? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Let us know any way you know how, and we will give you a shout out on the next episode of the show. And that is going to do it for us today on this episode of Locked On Canadiens. Thank you for tuning in and for making us your first listen of the day, for subscribing wherever you get your podcasts, and for making us here at Locked On, the #1 sports podcast network. If you never miss an episode, the Everyday Club is built for you. Get Locked On Canadiens ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedoncanadians.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL. You can find the show everywhere we're posting things at Locked On Canadians, Blue Sky, Instagram, and TikTok primarily. LockedOnCanadians@gmail.com for our email. Send us your mailbag questions. We do a mailbag every Friday with the Olympics coming up. Keep sending us those questions. We got a lot of trade deadline requests, so we have a lot of those cooking as well. So send those in. We love to hear from you guys. You can find me at Maybe It's Ian. You can find Laura at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.